Saving America one entrepreneur at a time, it's the Biz Rap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs, it's Biz Rap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a fabulous show lined up for you today. If you have not listened to Biz Rap Radio previously, we're the show that's all about small business and entrepreneurs. We're here to help you make more money with your business. We're here to share with you ideas, strategies, and concepts that you can use to run your small business more effectively. And if you don't have a business yet, if you're a budding entrepreneur out there trying to get started in business, hopefully we've got some ideas that will allow you to get into business and perhaps avoid some of the mistakes and the pitfalls that many small business people and entrepreneurs make. Now, something that as a business consultant and as an advisor to businesses and as a person who owns a number of businesses myself, something that always causes small businesses problems is accounts receivable. Typically what happens is as a small business is growing, there's a lot of focus put on sales, service, production. In other words, that part of the business that takes products or services and delivers them to the customer. You work very hard at taking care of your customers, making sure you provide good service, differentiating yourself from a lot of the big corporations that in many cases don't provide as personalized a service as you can as a small business. But because you're so focused on your customers, you're focused on driving in new business, you're focused basically on taking care of the day-to-day, sometimes small businesses start to run into problems with their accounts receivable. And as the business gets bigger and bigger, the number of bad debts that you have, the number of uncollectible accounts you have, and even in some cases, the inability of a small business to get its invoices out to its customers on a timely basis, all of that can increase. And of course, if you're losing money, if you're having to write off bad debts, or if your money, the money you're trying to collect from your customers is coming in slowly, both of those can negatively impact your business. You need those accounts receivable to come in because that's the working capital you need to turn back over to pay your staff, buy new inventories, pay for your marketing campaigns. And of course, when you have to write off a bad debt, that's a huge direct hit to your bottom line. So accounts receivable management is something that is critical to small businesses. And I am so lucky today to have here in the luxurious Biz Rap Radio studios down in downtown Long Beach, California, two experts on accounts receivable. And they're going to be sharing with us today some ideas and concepts that we can use as small business people to make sure that we're collecting our accounts receivable and we're invoicing our accounts receivable and we're managing them in an appropriate fashion. So I have in studio, I've got Julie Wigmen, and and I've got Hope Hunter, and they are from Transworld Systems. And Transworld Systems is a company that says they are redefining the collection agency industry by providing businesses and healthcare organizations with better tools for accounts receivable, debt recovery, and past due accounts. And of course, they go on to claim success. They work in many different industries. They are a large corporation. They work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, but they also do work with small businesses. So, Julie and Hope, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Well, thank you for joining me. And, I'm so excited to have you here because this is a big problem with small companies. How do we collect effectively from our customers? So, and how do we manage effectively? So, what ideas could you share with us that a small business person might want to implement in his or her company?
Well, I think the first thing is the balance between making sure that you get your bills collected but maintaining your relationship with your customers, and that's what most small businesses are concerned about. The reason that they don't often effectively collect their money from customers is that they're afraid of ruining their relationship with them.
So you can't be too aggressive. And I know that in the old days, having been in business a long time, we used to hire these people who were called collection agencies, and we'd kind of let the receivables sit on the books for 60 days or 90 days, and we'd kind of do nothing. We might send out a couple of statements, but if we didn't collect, at the end of 90 days, it goes to the collection agency, and you get this guy he sounded like a mafia character on their phone. Hey, buddy, you need to pay this bill, or we're going to be paying you a visit pretty quick here. And then the customers would phone up and complain, hey, I just got threatened by that guy who's trying to collect the bill, we don't want to do that, really, do we?
Well, hopefully that should be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I mean, there are tools and methods in which you can solve most of your problems before you hit that 90-day mark, which is critical.
So, and what we believe in is treating your client with respect and dignity. And honestly, that's what people respond to.
Well, now I know a lot of small businesses might be saying, "Hey, here's the problem. I know I got a problem with receivables. I don't have time to work on it. I've got Sally who works for me. She makes minimum wage, $8 an hour. I asked her to call the customers, and I almost have to sit over her shoulder to make her call the customers because it's like she's afraid to call the customers and ask for money. On the other hand, I can't afford to go out and hire myself an $80,000 a year accounts receivable manager. What do I do?"
The way your typical client feels and having your office person contact someone is of great concern because they're afraid of creating animosity between the business and the client. A company such as ours is a great solution because it's at a very low cost. We can come in wherever you find a bump in your accounts receivable management, whether it's at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and put in a system that will address it strategically. And our clients find that we not only get them paid faster, we keep the client with the business. We keep word of mouth on the street and on the internet very positive.
Okay, so you're talking a little bit about your business and what your business can do for perhaps customers and people who are listening right now. But can you be a little more granular, perhaps? I mean, what you talked about was kind of a little bit vague, but can you give me some nuts and bolts? Exactly how would you work with, say, a small business is doing $1 million a year. They got 50, 75,000 in accounts receivable. They're having troubles collecting. What exactly would you do for them?
Well, the first thing a company has to have is they have to have a defined credit collection policy that has been clearly communicated to their customers so that their customers know what to expect. So if they're for example, offering net 30 on their accounts receivables, put it in writing and make sure that the customers know that that's what you expect from them.
Now, do you find that's a good question? So I've got an actual accounts receivable policy. When are the bills due? When do we cut you off from future services? When do we turn you over to a collection agency or a company like Transworld Systems? Do you find a lot of companies simply don't have that?
They simply don't have it. So one of the things that we do is provide them with some suggestions and some opportunities to put a policy in place that they can put on their letterhead and send out to their customers in order to have a clearly defined credit policy.
So an idea, a suggestion, if you're a small business person, you need a defined credit policy. If you don't have one, prepare one. If you can't do it by yourself, maybe contact Transworld and they can help you with that. We are coming to the end of this segment. We're going to have to go to commercial break, but I've got Julie and Hope in here from Transworld Systems. We're talking about accounts receivable. It's BizRap Radio with your host, Michael Manahan, and we will be back in just a moment. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thank you for joining us. And if you're just joining us, if you missed the first segment, I have two experts on accounts receivable in the studio right now. I've got Julie Wigmen and Hope Hunter from Transworld Systems. And Transworld Systems is a company that says they are redefining the collection agency industry by providing businesses and healthcare organizations with better tools for accounts receivable, debt recovery, and past due accounts. And of course, as small business people, many of us struggle with accounts receivable. Our staff don't like to collect the bills. Often we get bottlenecked in terms of getting our invoicing out. After we've sent out the invoices, we often don't have good follow-up. Julie was just mentioning that a lot of businesses she runs across don't actually even have a formal credit policy in place, that they really are not communicating to their customers exactly how their credit system works. So that's great. So Julie and Hope, what other ideas can you give to a small business person about how he or she might look at the accounts receivable in their businesses and perhaps do a better job internally before they talk to you guys and hire you guys, internally, of just managing their accounts receivable?
I think it's extremely important that your client, customer, patient, when they come see you, that you let them know how much they owe at that time. Some businesses wait 30 days, and I don't advise that at all. Also, follow up every 30 days with an invoice, a phone call. Follow up every 30 days with an invoice, phone call. Make it systematic so the client, customer, patient knows they owe the money.
So what you're saying is, and a perfect example, let's say I go to my doctor. I was at my doctor 5 weeks ago. The doctor invoiced the insurance company. The insurance company paid most of the bill, but I still owe $72. I come in for my next appointment. The doctor's office should say something to me when I arrive. Hey, Mr. Manahan, thanks for coming for your next appointment. By the way, you still owe $72 from your last visit. Would you like to pay for that now? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
I advise my medical practices to advise their patients on how much they owe at the time of the visit before they send it to insurance. And there's practice management systems that allow practices to do that, and I advise them to look into those, such as Athena or eClinicalWorks, which are very helpful in coming up with those numbers.
Gotcha. Okay, so we should be talking to our customers about what they owe us, not kind of avoiding the discussion. That's kind of what you're saying.
Let me give you a couple of quick things, because I know you're short on time. Is that any conversation is better than no conversation.
Uh-huh.
So even if we get the customer to call you and they're upset about something, at least you're having a conversation with them and you can resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you a couple of tips that everybody should be using out there. Is that you need to invoice your people promptly, and you need to send your statements regularly. You can't just intermittently send statements to people and expect them to pay you because they've got another 11 or 12 bills that have already piled up on their kitchen table. So you need to make sure that your bill rises to the top of the stack in importance. How do we do that? Well, we contact overdue accounts more frequently. There's no law that says you can only contact people once every 30 days. But you also need to follow all of the rules and regulations and laws pertaining to what you can and can't say to a customer when you're calling them about an overdue account. So you need to make sure that you're up on all of those regulations.
Let me interrupt, Julie, because that's a really good point. I know small business people, big corporations, they kind of get it that you're going to have a certain amount of bad debts. That's part of doing business. You do what you can to collect them, and you write off the rest. But in small businesses, we can often take it really personally. I mean, a customer comes in, and we meet him face-to-face, and maybe we're doing some job for him or her. We're repairing something for them or selling them something, and we get to know them, and they might come to our store 3 or 4 times. And then all of a sudden they don't pay, and it's like, oh my God! It's this pain goes through your chest. It's like you've been robbed.
It's exactly like being robbed, and we run into this every single day with small businesses. So we tell small business owners to use your aging sheet, not your heart, when you're talking about your accounts receivables. Treat everybody the same. I mean, maybe unless it's your sister or your brother-in-law or your mother-in-law, for God's sake. But other than that, use your aging sheet. Have a policy in place where you contact people a certain number of times with a certain type of communication with them that's respectful, but do it at a timely basis. Treat everybody at 60 days the same.
Right. So that's really good advice because it takes kind of the emotion out of it. And
you have to take the emotion out of it.
And I know what you're talking about because I've done this myself. I've scanned the accounts receivable. That's Bob. I'll cut him some slack. I won't bother calling him.
Right.
Well, that guy don't know so well. Pick up the phone. Hey, Mac, why haven't you paid? And then if you do find that somebody you know well hasn't paid, then you might even be inclined to be rude to them because I
think business owners are offended
Yeah.
when they have a long-term customer that doesn't pay them. But the fact is that business is business. You don't know what's happened with somebody's personal circumstances or with their business. And as a business owner, our firm belief within our company is that all businesses deserve to be paid on time.
Well, you actually have something. I think you call it your creditor's bill of rights. Do you want to?
Yes, we do.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. This is what differentiates us from other collection agencies out there, is that we are really consultants, and we happen to be the largest collection agency in the country, and probably the most successful, probably the most inexpensive. But the reason behind that is that we have a different philosophy. Not only do we believe that businesses deserve to be paid on time, but we believe that extending credit is a courtesy and shouldn't bring financial or regulatory risk to your business. Extending credit is good for a business, and it helps to increase your client and customer base, but your people need to abide by whatever your credit collection policy is. And we believe that businesses should be able to focus on what they do best to free them from the burden of collections. I've never met a dentist that became a dentist because he wanted to be a collection agency. He became a dentist because he wanted to provide good dental service to people. So we think that you ought to be able to focus on whatever your business is. We also believe that businesses should not have to forfeit their profit margin to get help with their cash flow. If your profit margin on your company is, let's say, 10%, this is after you've made payroll and rent and bought equipment and supplies and delivered everything, and you've got a 10% profit margin, and you have $10,000 outstanding in debt. If you don't get that collected, you have to sell another $100,000 worth of goods and services in order to make that up. So it's not just writing off the $10,000. It's the amount of work that you have to put in order to make up for it. So we think that late paying customers should be held accountable to their obligations, but we should do it in a dignified and particularly a lawful and respectful manner.
That is so important. I really like that part about, letting business owners focus on their business, on what they do best, taking care of customers, marketing their products and services, and delivering those products and services to their customers. But as you say, an effective and good credit program can get you more business and get you more sales, but you don't want it putting you out of business. We've established that you need a good credit policy. We've established that you should be communicating with your customers on a regular basis about how much they owe you. You need to take the emotion out of that. You should be using your accounts receivable aging report to manage collections, not favoring one customer or taking pity on one customer or getting mad at another customer because you have personal relationships with those people. And you need to approach the whole credit. And of course, you also need to make sure that if you are doing your own collections, you abide by the rules and regulations issued by the government that monitor how you're able to communicate with your customers, because the last thing you want to do is get in trouble from some regulatory agency by for perhaps harassing your customers or something like that. Okay, so for those people who maybe don't want to do it themselves and want to actually perhaps consider engaging the services of somebody like Trans World Systems who can help them with their accounts receivable management, how does somebody get in contact with you guys?
They can call our office at 213-365-4325, extension 31.
Okay, give that number once again.
213-365-4325, extension 31, and you can speak to Julie or myself, and we're here to help you.
Okay, that's Julie or Hope. Now, what about a website? What if they want to check your company out on the website?
You can go to our website, www.transworldsystems.com.
Okay, so it's Julie and Hope from transworldsystems.com. We've been talking today about accounts receivable management, how you can more effectively manage your accounts receivable, and also how if you can't do it yourself, if you need help, you can contact Transworld Systems, see if they can help you. And even if you decide not to engage their services, just having a meeting with them, sitting down with them, talking to them on the phone, you will get a number of great ideas on how you can better manage your accounts receivable, collect from your customers, and hopefully at the end of the day keep more of your business's profit for yourself. This is your host, Mike Manahan, BizRap Radio. We're going to break for commercials and we'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thank you so much for joining us. And very interesting guests we had on the show in the first couple of segments from Transworld Systems, talking about accounts receivable management strategies that you can use to improve your accounts receivable, to collect those bills from your customers, and perhaps not to get so frustrated over the fact that at the end of the day, some customers are just not going to pay you. But offering credit is an excellent way. It's an excellent strategy to increase your sales. You just have to need to know what you're doing in order to do it properly. And now we are moving on to our next segment, which is with our regular contributor, David Fraser, also known as the Market Monk. David, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike.
Well, welcome to the show as always, and thank you so much for contributing. Now, David, I want to talk a little bit about this corporate tax issue. As you probably saw, Burger King is acquiring or merging with this Tim Horton Donuts out of Canada. As a result, the head office of Burger King will be moving to Canada, and many people in the U.S., particularly in the government, are looking at this as if it's some ploy on behalf of Burger King to evade U.S. taxation. What are your thoughts on this?
Gosh, I don't even know where to start. It's both humorous, sad, and entertaining all at the same time. So let's think about that for a moment. What are my thoughts? Boy, I could talk for an hour about this. Of course, we don't have that much time. My thoughts are, well, it seems to me just the opposite that our esteemed President Barack Obama has stated and believes. Just the opposite of what he has said. It seems to me that is a very patriotic decision.
And why do you say patriotic? It's patriotic to pay less taxes?
Gee, what a surprise. Shocking, isn't it? That American businesses and individuals, for that matter, do everything that they can to pay less taxes. Isn't that one of the principles on which this country was founded? To reduce one's taxes? So yes, I find that to be extremely patriotic. Of course they should do whatever they can, as every individual and business should do anything that they should legally to reduce their taxes. It's a real shame that a business finds that it needs to do so by moving its headquarters to a different country. That's a real shame. But what do you expect them to do? And Americans should be applauding this. Why? Because Americans, probably many people in this country, even though they do not know it, probably have some of their money invested in Burger King. Why? Because most people in this country have some money in mutual funds. Mutual funds tend to be very diversified, and you'll probably find that many mutual funds have holdings in Burger King. So I think this, it's sad, but I think they're doing the right thing. So
what you're really saying, David, is that if Burger King pays less taxes, it could very well mean more money in the pockets of the average Joe in the United States. Anybody who's got a pension plan, a 401k plan, you could potentially be benefiting because instead of the money going to the U.S. government, the money's going to the pension plans, the 401k plans, the mutual funds, and that really is a benefit to citizens. Well, why wouldn't the government want to do something that allows a greater benefit to the citizens? Doesn't that seem opposite of the way it's supposed to be? Or am I missing something?
I don't think you're missing a thing. We got a president who, by the way, has only, no, now that I think about it, I'm not sure he's ever worked in the private sector. He was a university professor for many years at the University of Chicago, but that's, that is a private institution. So that's the only private sector job that he's ever had. He's working as a school teacher. He's never, this guy doesn't care. He couldn't care less. He thinks that, whatever. We could talk for an hour about that too, but
well, let me ask you a question. How do you know, just from a global perspective, and we compete in a global economy. I mean, everybody realizes that globalization. Tom Friedman wrote his book about globalization. We compete in a global economy, and that means we're competing against other governments for business.
Right.
What are the tax rates like in other countries?
Well, it's actually substantially less than the United States. And when I talk about this, because there will be people on the left who, love that word we, which means everybody but me, the people on the left, when they're talking about changes that they want to see, they often, they'll probably come back and say, well, the effective tax rates, once you take into effect deductions and credits, is actually lower than the statutory a federal rate of 39 it's 35%. But if we won't get into all the details, let's just leave it around 35%, the statutory rate. The effective rate is going to be less. But there have been studies that have been done by independent organizations that even show when you take all the credits and deductions and get to that effective rate, that yes, the United States is tax rate is substantially higher than other countries. Real quick comparison, not all the details, we don't have time for it. For example, during the year 2013, the marginal effective tax rate for the United States was 35.3%. In Canada, it was 18.6%.
Well, that's like half.
It might not be too surprising why Burger King decided to find a company in Canada that they could buy to move their headquarters there. Exactly. It's almost half. It's almost half. Yeah. And these, studies have shown that the effective rate, that companies actually pay on average is one of the higher rates in the world.
I hear a lot of people talk when we talk about education, we talk about healthcare. They say, "Oh, well, we should have universal healthcare because they do in Europe and it works, and we should pay for everybody's education because they do in Europe and it works." Why aren't those same people saying, "Hey, we should have really low tax rates on corporations because that's what they do in Europe and it works"? Why is there this disconnect? If it's good in these other countries for healthcare and it's good for education, why isn't it good for corporate taxes?
Well, I think your audience is well aware of the disconnect there, and that is, in general, what I find people that make those comments are not business people. They don't run a business, and they don't have to worry about these things. And unfortunately, I'm not going to call them stupid. There's a difference between ignorance and stupid. So I'm not going to say they're stupid, but they're simply ignorant. They talk with their emotions, and they don't even know anything about the facts. It's really sad.
Well, it seems to me with if big corporations like Burger King, and of course they're not the only ones. I'm not sure why they're getting so much attention. It's my understanding Apple at one point in time moved its headquarters to Ireland to avoid taxes, and we have many other corporations doing the same thing. But if it's good for big businesses, then I'm wondering if maybe small businesses, depending upon what type of business they're running, if small businesses should be looking at moving their headquarters to Canada or Ireland or some other country.
And I think the answer is if they just have domestic operations here in the United States, they don't have any foreign operations. I'm not sure that would be a prudent thing to do. There might be many other expenses that would end up meaning that, okay, they might save on their taxes, but they're going to have other costs that they did not want and do not need. But if it's a small business, there are small businesses that have operations in other countries. And if a small business does have operations in other countries, they really need to be talking to their accountant. They really do, and to look into this, because it might make sense to do so.
Well, you know, David, that just put something in my mind, which is I'm thinking that I should find an international tax expert to come on BizRap Radio and talk to us about the feasibility of small businesses opening up shop, if you will, moving headquarters into other countries. This is a really interesting topic. I'm so glad you could join us. It's BizRap Radio. Mike Manahan, your host. I'm here on the radio with David Fraser, the Market Monk. And David, you actually have a free or complimentary newsletter that people can sign up for. Is that correct?
I have one. It's a weekly on the financial markets. Yes, it's 100% free, but it still can be helpful to a small business owner to discuss an important economic and sometimes geopolitical development. So yes, I have a completely free one, and then I have an extremely low cost one. I think it's around $69, $70 a year that focuses on small businesses.
Okay, fantastic. With that, we got to wrap it up. I'm Michael Manahan, your host for BizRap Radio, and we will be back right after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you missed our last segment, we were talking with David Fraser. David is the Market Monk, and David is an expert on monitoring economic trends, both in the United States and globally, as well as stock market trends. We were talking with David about corporate taxation and the fact that Burger King is moving its headquarters to Canada, because Canada has an effective a corporate tax rate that's about 50% less than here in the United States. And of course, they're doing this by way of acquiring Tim Horton Donuts. And a lot of people are up in arms about that. They think, well, hey, why should they be doing that? They're taking tax money out of the United States. But according to David, we in the United States are very uncompetitive on a worldwide scale. Our corporate tax rates are significantly greater than the corporate tax rates in other countries. And of course, companies that do have a choice in which country they can operate out of are going to move their headquarters and move their operations and their businesses into those countries that charge less in the amount of tax. And Burger King's not the only one who's done this. Many, many, many U.S. corporations do it. Apple has done it. They moved, I believe, their headquarters to Ireland, and the list goes on and on. But the question is this wrong? Is this something that companies should not do? And David, the Market Monk, was of the opinion that, in fact, a company has an obligation to its owners, its stockholders, to do whatever it takes to minimize taxes, as long as what it is doing is legal. And there is nothing illegal about moving your headquarters out of this country. And as we were talking, this really actually benefits many Americans. And you could say, well, Mike, how is that? If the money's not going to the U.S. government, where's it going? Well, it's going to the stockholders of Burger King. Most people in the United States have money in a 401k, they own mutual funds, or they have money from a pension fund. And those pension funds and mutual funds make money by investing in U.S. corporations. And so if the U.S. corporations pay less tax, there are more dividends to the 401k plans and the pension funds, and there is more profit, which means the price of the stock rises, so the 401k plans and the pension plans benefit. So really all we're doing here is, all that corporation is doing is shifting tax money from the U.S. government to individuals like you and me, who might have small investment portfolios. And really, when you think about it, is that such a bad thing? I mean, do you really want the money to go to the government so the government can turn around and send it to you? Or wouldn't you rather get it directly from Burger King, being a stockholder in Burger King, which brings up another point about corporate taxes. And there's a huge fallacy out there that somehow if corporations don't pay taxes, they're getting away with something. The fact is, corporations don't pay taxes. You do. Yes, that's right. You pay the tax. And here's why. In order to do business, any business has a set rate of return on investment that business needs to make. And, put it in a small business perspective. If you had $100,000 to invest and you were going to open up a business and all you were going to earn off your business was $5,000 from your $100,000 investment, you wouldn't open that business. You'd say it's not worthwhile. If you could put $100,000 into a business and maybe earn $50,000 or $60,000 a year, then you say, hey, that sounds like a reasonable investment because that's compensating me for some kind of an interest factor. It's compensating me for the risk of inflation, and it's compensating me for the investment risk inherent in a business. So businesses require a rate of return on the capital that's invested. If profits drop because taxes increase, businesses really have two choices. A, they can expand less and perhaps even have trouble getting capital because they're not earning enough to attract capital. Or alternatively, they will do what most businesses do. They simply increase the prices of their goods and services so that they can pay the tax and still make the required rate of return on their invested capital. So at the end of the day, the tax that corporations pays is being passed on to you as the consumer in the form of increased prices on the goods and services you purchase. It's as simple as that. At the end of the day, you're paying that tax. If corporations did not have to pay any corporate income tax, the goods and services they sell in the open market would be less. So, of course, this always gets back to the old debate. What's better for money? Is it better for the money to go to the government to distribute as it sees fit? Or would you prefer more money in your pocket to do with as you see fit? That's the million-dollar question. And it seems increasingly in this country, people are of the opinion that the money should go to the government so some politician can figure out what should be done with that money. But I think most of us small businesses would say, let's us keep the money and we'll do with the money what we see fit to do. Time for quote of the week. Opportunities are usually disguised as hard work, so most people don't recognize them. Again, opportunities are usually disguised as hard work, so most people don't recognize them. And that is from Ann Landers, and how true that is just from experience. Moving on to our weekly feature of dumb business rules and regulations. How about this one? Let's say you own a business in the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and things aren't going too well, and you say it's really not worth it running this business. For whatever reason, you decide to shut it down. Maybe you're having trouble paying your bills. Maybe it's just, not a good time for you. Maybe you get sick and decide you need to get out of business. Maybe it's just time to retire, so you decide it's easier to close up shop, perhaps, and sell off your inventory than it is to actually sell the business as a going concern. Well, get ready. City of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You need to purchase a license to go out of business. That's right. You can't just close down your business. You have to purchase a license to go out of business, and this license is not cheap. They want to charge you $2 for every $1,000 worth of inventory. So if you're a company that sells machinery, equipment, that could add up. It could be tens of thousands of dollars going to the city of Milwaukee just for the privilege of going out of business. Stupid government regulation number 2. You know that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has required that we have to put calorie counts on food, including fast food. So if you go to Taco Bell, they got to tell you how many calories are in that bean burrito or in that salad. Okay, I think that's a nice idea, but according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the food service industry will spend 14 million hours every single year complying with this regulation. 14 million hours. Now, really, there's so much information on the internet. We get nutritional information at schools. Our doctors are always telling us what we should eat and shouldn't eat. I mean, do we really need calorie counts for us to know that a salad has less calories in it than a pepperoni pizza? I mean, come on, if you don't know that, if you're that ignorant in society, and if you're concerned about it, we've got millions of resources. But no, we're going to force food service industry companies to waste 14 million hours posting calorie counts. Now, how much stupider could we get? Not to mention the fact that you as small business people, many of you are in the food services industry, and this directly affects you. BizRap Radio, fixing America through individual economic freedom. I'm Michael Manahan. Thanks for listening.